Thank you. Ever since I was a child, I knew exactly what I wanted. And everything that I went after, I achieved. Actually, I had written a whole list of everything that I wanted. And I found that list like 25 years later. And I had achieved everything on that list.
Because when you ask, it is given.
Then, my dreams turned into a nightmare. And what I had done was just build a cage of gold that I was basically a slave to. My profession that I had always loved so much had turned into pain and suffering, just having to go in and see the people. And I'm a physician, I'm a psychiatrist. At that point, I made myself deathly ill, and I had a near-death experience. I sold my institute, I stopped practicing, I got divorced. I basically destroyed everything that I had worked all my life to gain. That has been going on now for 5 years. I have been paralyzed and done nothing.
Well, we would like to give you a different spin on all of this, because we would not say that you destroyed everything. We would say that you did your best to take a path of less resistance. And the reason that we refuse to say that you destroyed everything is because that list you made when you were a child, and that every day continually amending of that list, whether you knew you were doing it or not. In other words, we love that list that you made because we want you to understand that whether you actually sit down and write a list, which you then later find, or not, you are constantly exuding desires to the universe. Every moment in time, as you are having these contrasting experiences, you are sending out rockets of desire. And the universe is receiving every one of them. And as each new experience causes you to amend it a little more, you've been adding to that list. In other words, that list that you found is hundreds of thousands of times more than you could ever extrapolate onto a piece of paper in words. In other words, what we're getting at is the universe has received this huge, never-ending, always amending list from you and is responding to it constantly. So, when you say, and 5 years ago I began the dismantling or the destroying of all of that, we want to say to you, you cannot, because you cannot take back from the universe your list of desires. It still stands intact. In fact, it is much, much more today than it was when you wrote it. And so the universe still knows what your list of desires are while they are amended. And the universe is still responding to that list. And all you have to do is get into the place where you're not resisting it. Now, we want to talk with you about that just a little bit, because you said that you had all of these desires and it was going along well, and then there became a point where instead of reaching for what you desired, you became bogged down in the mire of what was. In other words, can you feel at what point your day was less about what was becoming and what was joyfully evolving and became more about the discomfort of someone's moment? What began happening that caused you to think more thoughts that didn't feel good and fewer thoughts that did feel good?
I think that because I created a institute,
yes,
which became very large and bogged down with a lot of paperwork and business things that actually was not exactly what I wanted to do.
So you found yourself doing something different than you had dreamed it as being.
Yes.
And what we're wanting you to realize, if we could go back a few years and find you in that place of being bogged down, what we would say is, keep reminding yourself why you're doing what you're doing. Keep reactivating the dream, which keeps you in vibrational harmony with the dream, and the universe will deliver to you whatever you need. So all of this paperwork begins to ensue, and all of this bureaucracy, and all of these people that are clamoring for more attention and more money and more recognition and more whatever they need. And you're feeling the tension of that. In that tension moment, you shoot out a rocket of desire that says, I need an administrator. I need somebody to handle the paperwork. I need somebody to deal with these things. And as these rockets are shooting out of you, whether you even acknowledged it or not, had you been in a place of greater relaxation, had you been tending to your own energy first, Had you known then what you know now, in other words, the universe would have yielded to you assistance that would have dealt with that would have taken care of that. And we don't want to make you feel uncomfortable that didn't happen, because it can happen today. And we're not saying get your institute back. We're not saying bring your marriage back. What we're saying is from wherever you stand, your desires have been amended. The universe still knows who you are, still knows what you want, still is answering that. And as you relax, something magnificent will unfold. It will be revealed to you. But you can't use words like dilemma and tragedy and dismantled and destroyed and divorce. And you can't keep those vibrations active within you and get into this place of allowing. So here today we would like to show you the path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance, as you've already seen demonstrated, just feels better than the path of resistance. So for example, which feels better? I destroyed my life of success that I had built, or I made a decision that gave me more breathing space. And if I had it to do over again, I wouldn't do it, or if I had it to do over again, I would do the same thing. If I had it to do over again, I would do the same thing. I might make different choices about it, but ultimately, I know that where I am now in terms of dismantling that or selling that was a decision that I'm still very much at one with. So I'm dead and finished. There's nothing more for me to do, or I'm still alive and looking for something fulfilling. All that I've lived before is wasted because I built this empire and then shot it in the foot, or all that I've lived has culminated in the power of who I am now, and the universe is still answering who I am now. Feels good, doesn't it? So our words to you are chill out. Relax. Compliment yourself of all the good work that you have done. Know that you are a fascinated person who likes to have something to do, and that the majority of the disgruntlement that you are feeling now is more about having all of this pent-up desire that's not focused anywhere than it is anything else.
It's a feeling of paralyzed.
The feeling of paralyzation, let us show you exactly what it is. I should do that, 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 I should do that. I want that, I've got that, I want that, I've got that, I want that, I've got that, I want that, I've got that. That's what makes you feel paralyzed. It's just contradicted energy. How you loosen that up is by saying, I want that, I don't have that. I want that, I don't have that. I want that, I would like to have that. There might be a way for that. I'll watch for a way for that. That might work, that could work. I've seen that work. That has worked. It works for others. It could work for me. And you start just feeling things begin to loosen a little bit. You just can't say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no without being paralyzed. You have learned objectivity. It is part of your training. You got to get over that. You can't be objective. You cannot look at the facts of what is and achieve vibrational harmony with what you want to become. In other words, that's the trap that people get into. They say, I desire to be over there, but I'm over here. But I desire to be over there, but I'm over here. That's what the paralyzation is.
But worse than that, I have...
It's all right to exaggerate.
I have lost the desire. It's like...
Oh, no, you haven't. If you had lost the desire, you would be sitting here in contentment. If someone on the telephone called you and said, hello, you don't know me, I'm just calling to tell you I will never call you again. You would say, who cares? But if someone you really know and care about called you and said, you will never see or hear from me again, you would be torn apart, you see. And so you have powerful desire. Otherwise, you would not be feeling this paralyzation. If you did not have a desire, you would move with the tide. The feeling of paralyzation is trying to go in two different directions at the same time. And we promise you, one of those directions is powerful desire. So as you just relax a little more by patting yourself on the back, looking for the positive aspects, realizing the value of what you've done, realizing that you've made no wrong turns, you've made no wrong decisions. Do you know you can't get it wrong and you never get it done? You cannot get it wrong and you never get it done. And the reason that you can't get it wrong is because you never get it done. Because you stand in this place that feels so wrong, it feels so terribly wrong, and out of it a rocket of desire shoots off. And source energy rides the rocket. And all you've got to do is look in the direction of the rocket. Think about the rocket. Pretend about the rocket. Find vibrational compliance with the rocket. And before you know it, you are moving in the direction of your new desire. That's why you can't get it wrong, because it is never done. There is desire that is pulsing within you that is greater than the desire that we've ever felt within you before. Your desire is stronger now than ever before. So just relax and let the universe show you how it can best manifest, understanding all that you now know. In other words, think about what you now know that you didn't know then. You don't want a huge institute. You don't want to be responsible to that many people. You don't want to get bogged down in the quagmire of the bureaucracy of it. You don't want so much government intervention within it. You don't, in other words, there are so many things that you do not want. But you know what? In every one of those things where you know clearly what you do not want, there's another end of that stick where you know what you do want. And that's what the universe now knows about and is opening doors for you, you see. But as you run around today talking about how hard that was, how you didn't want that, how unpleasant that was, you keep holding yourself in vibrational resistance to what the universe is trying to line up for you. When the path of least resistance starts unfolding for you, you can feel the momentum of what you're wanting to do. And you know what we're talking about. You have felt that on many occasions. That was your life before you got bogged down here. And we think that part of what you are verbalizing here is you don't want that overwhelmment that you felt, but you miss that being in the flow. Yeah. And you think that you can't have it both ways. You think that to be in the flow, you've got to take the overwhelmment too. And we are here to tell you that the universe will yield to you anything you want, and it will come to you through your path of chosen least resistance. So you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. You don't have to have an institute. You could write private books. You could have private classes. You could teach people on an individual basis. You could have an individual practice. In other words, there are endless things you could do. You could get off that subject altogether, although we have to tell you that you are a teacher to the very core of your being. And you will never be very satisfied if you're not doing something that is uplifting in nature to others, you see. It's sort of who you've always been even before you were in this body. It's what you came to do, to help people to understand that well-being is natural and to help bring them back to it. So, if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would say, I have been on a sort of vacation, a sabbatical. 5 years, 10 years, makes no difference. Took a little time off, realigned. Esther had the good fortune of hearing a physician being interviewed on television. And he is a neurosurgeon who does very technical operations, separating Siamese twins, brain surgery, that sort of thing. And because his expertise is so extreme, and because he is so specific, he is sought after world over. And there are many more, hundreds of times the patients wanting him than he has time or life to give them. But in his quest to be of as much value as possible, he is working 16, 18-hour days, getting home at midnight or later, hardly ever seeing his family, and still more patients not being seen than are being seen. And then he got sick. And then he said, it finally occurred to me that I could go home at 6 o'clock still not having gotten my work done. Or I could go home at midnight still not having gotten my work done. But going home at 6 o'clock still not getting my work done is much better for me. And then he said, with all that we've come to know about the human body, we doctors and scientists don't know anything. Because it turns out that it's all mental first. So he said, it took me getting sick before I started putting me first. And sometimes your empire has to crumble a little before you will yell uncle and acknowledge that you are carrying much more than is your responsibility. nothing is more important than that you feel good, you see. You have to somehow decide to be selfish enough to keep yourself feeling good first, and then you're of value to anyone that you can get to. But until then, you don't have anything to give.